everybody. Welcome back to News for Normies. I am Millennial Meditations, your host, bringing you a week's worth of news in a relatively short time frame. Hope everybody had a good Christmas and Happy New Year. A lot of time with family, friends, and loved ones. I know I needed the break. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. So before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment, share it with your normie friends. And follow me on Rumble if you're watching on YouTube, because, and I know I say it every week, but this one may actually get flagged for some of the clips I show later. So, all those links are listed down below, in all of the descriptions across YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, all that good stuff. Make sure you follow and share with some of your normie friends. So, we're going to start with a little bit of local news that's actually kind of national news because of who is involved. A man named William DeFore was arrested for trying to break into J.D. Vance's home in Cincinnati. Now here is the picture of William DeFore, his mugshot, and he's been charged with multiple crimes for this attempted break-in. But also, and this is some details that didn't get reported a whole lot, it turns out he is transgender, going by Julia online, as you can see in his Facebook profile here. And his parents are Democrat donors. So I'll bet that they are donating to Amy Acton, who is running for governor of Ohio right now, Democrat. Thankfully, the vice president and his family were not there at that home during the time of this break-in, but still crazy that this even happened. Now, speaking of crazy news, this is going to be the bulk of today's episode, and the next story after this is what will get a little spicy. So, we gotta rewind the clock a little bit back to December when massive fraud was uncovered by Nick Shirley in Minnesota. Fake daycare centers were set up all across Minneapolis, and probably the rest of the state too, and were receiving government funds to operate, stealing an estimated $9 billion in funding. One daycare alone was receiving nearly $2 million from the government, as Nick Shirley explains here.
Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong, and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday, and if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working, midday, children should be in here, and this place is licensed for 99 children, and this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing, and like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
So this same type of fraud and scam is going on in Columbus, Ohio as well, with several people such as former MLB pitcher John Rocker, Mehek Cook, and Walter Kurt investigating that as well. At least $20 million in fraud has been found in Ohio.
Hey friends, so just in a few hours, the Department of Youth Services in Ohio has uncovered $20 million of fraud. This is just the beginning. We don't just need to look at paperwork. We need boots on the ground at every daycare center that's receiving taxpayer-funded dollars, and we need answers. It is unacceptable to allow fraud to happen at any cost in the state of Ohio.
So, because of the investigation in Minnesota, Tim Walz has dropped out of the governor race for 2026, and when he gave a press conference about that, he turned it into a rant about January 6th.
Governor, what decision to end your campaign by yourself, or did you receive pressure from Democratic allies?
This is a decision that I make and make with my family. And certainly, I think, as I said, it's the right decision. I'll note, I think it's appropriate we're here today. The war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us that are for a show of the cameras. I'm going to note to all of you, today is January 6th. There's no debate what happened. The President of the United States led an insurrection against a fair election to try and overturn that and, report both sides of this. Well, he said he really didn't, and courts convicted 400 of them, and he pardoned them. No, he did that. He did that, and that's today. And it's clear that we also saw today he implemented 5 states are being punished with a freezing of federal funds illegally that were appropriated by Congress, our tax dollars.
Also, Tampon Tim labeled Nick Shirley a white supremacist during his investigations.
This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy.
So it sounds to me, Nick, that Governor Tim Walz is saying that you and others that are out there trying to expose this, you're doing it because you're white supremacists. What is your response to him?
Yeah, Tim wants votes. There are entire apartment complexes where white people have been pushed out of these apartment complexes because Somalians have taken over, and they're inside of these towns like Minneapolis where they can go get votes from these people. And if you have 100,000 people that will vote for you because you're going to enable and let this stuff happen, and because you're going to call a white person racist for calling out facts, this is what's going to happen to a state like Minnesota. Minnesotans, they say Minnesota nice, but they are very upset. And I fully understand why they're upset, because they don't have a governor who's actually working for them. He's actually working against them.
Nick, your video's been viewed 93 million times. What do you think will be the result of this? Do you think that things will change because of bringing attention to this, or do you think it'll be much the same, swept under the rug and keep moving forward?
Yeah, there better be change. People are demanding it. The investigations have been launched just from that video alone. And so there better be change because, like I said, we work way too hard to be paying taxes. We work way too hard to be not knowing where our money's going. And at the end of the day, the people in the government, they work for us. We don't work for them. And so it's their responsibility to hold these people accountable. And so if there's not something that's happened, people are going to be very frustrated. And so if President Trump's watching this, it's time to really get down to nitty gritty and to make a difference in this place of Minnesota that is pretty much like Somaliland right now.
Also, Tim Walz claimed Nick Shirley was a, quote, delusional conspiracy theorist, end quote, in this tweet here that was posted by none other than, retard Tim. Finally, Tim Walz's own daughter admitted that the fraud going on is real.
But it's like, it's not about him. It's about he's the other side for a big group of Americans,
yes.
I feel like.
Yes, and I think he was popular during the campaign last fall.
Yep.
And he's still in office, and he was running again. And so it's just kind of an easy thing for them to pick up on. Mm-hmm. And I think there's enough truth to the fraud claim, things, that they were able to twist it and amplify it and whatnot, because it is being dealt with. They were just able to frame it in a way that benefited them.
It's gotten under people.
So because of this great journalism by Nick Shirley, the Trump administration sent 2,000 federal agents to Minneapolis to investigate the fraud. And it actually seems like Ilhan Omar may get denaturalized and deported as well. So that's long overdue. And also, I know a lot of people on the right and the podcast space have said this, but it does bear repeating. This has been going on, this fraud has been going on for quite some time, and it took a 23-year-old with a GoPro camera to uncover it. Not Fox News, not Newsmax, not CNN, not MSNBC, or any of these big-time journalistic entities. None of them did this. So that should say a lot about our state of journalism in the country. Nobody from the New York Times, the LA Times, nobody from those, sources of journalism could do this, but Nick Shirley, a 23-year-old with a GoPro, did. So I think, and this is just my own personal opinion here, those news outlets were somehow in on this as well and didn't want their own fraud to be investigated, but that's just me. And if you're listening on audio only, I just put on my tinfoil top hat to talk about a conspiracy theory. So you should watch the video, but if you're listening on audio, I do appreciate that as well. So, because of the tensions in Minneapolis, a woman was sadly shot in Minneapolis after attempting to ram law enforcement with her car. So as soon as this happened and the video started circulating online, people on the left claimed that she was just trying to drive away. However, the slow-mo of this looks very different. This video here from the officer shows that Renee Good, the woman who was driving that car, was trying to ram him as well.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking veteran. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the
All right,
car.
baby, go.
Whoa!
So, anybody on the left that's claiming that the officer was not in his right to shoot, you are absolutely wrong, and you should feel ashamed of yourself. But communists don't want to take accountability for their words and actions. Vice President J.D. Vance chimed in on this situation as well.
But the simple fact is, what you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who is trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. Nobody debates that. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe, against our law enforcement officers. I think what is clearly happening here, and it's going to keep on happening unless the Democrats wake up and say, you know what, you don't have to agree with our immigration policies. You don't have to agree with what the president or the vice president believe about immigration enforcement, but why don't you take this to the ballot box? Why don't you vote? Why don't you organize? Instead, what some of them are doing is encouraging people to get violent with our law enforcement officials. It's disgraceful, and it's got to stop.
So this is a pretty easy case to say that the law enforcement were in their right to shoot. Anybody can be killed by a car, and this officer was dragged by a car roughly 6 months ago when trying to detain somebody who was here illegally. So, yeah. In true communist fashion, Tampon Tim says that they will mobilize National Guard against ICE and DHS.
This morning we learned that an ICE officer shot and killed someone in Minneapolis. My deepest condolences to the family, to the loved ones who had to learn about this tragic event on national television. We have been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV, and today that recklessness cost someone their life. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back. Let me be clear, Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident, but we love this state. We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other. To Minnesotans, I say this: I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully, as you always do. We can't give them what they want. The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this: please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's mobile response team. And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Bob Jacobson of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety.
And finally, rioters were seen are seen here trying to force their way into a hotel where ICE agents are staying, so that way they can have a civil, peaceful conversation as to why they don't like ICE doing their job. So it definitely seems like Minnesota may be the starting point for Civil War 2.0. Definitely don't like that. So hopefully this stuff can get resolved quickly, but I highly doubt that. And also, whatever happened to the whole Midwest nice trope, it definitely seems like that has gone out the window. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that down below. Let me get a drink of water here. Alrighty. So just after this happened, 2 people were also shot in Portland, Oregon by Customs and Border Protection during a traffic stop after the people who were being pulled over allegedly tried to ram law enforcement too.
Local and federal sources tell ABC News that federal agents shot 2 people in Portland, Oregon. We're learning that the circumstances right now are a little unclear, but the FBI is responding. The agents who shot, we're told, are with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The FBI will be investigating and as the lead agency. I want to bring in ABC News' Alex Stone, who is tracking the developments here. And Alex, I recognize that a lot of this is still very, very fluid. But what can you tell us so far?
Yeah, generally, what we know at this point, Alex, is a short time ago, and the FBI is responding right now that they will be the ones investigating this, that it was a shooting involving federal agents from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, not ICE, in the Portland area, and that there was a man and a woman, we're told, who were shot. They are being transported right now. There was a city council meeting that was going on for the Portland City Council. They have abruptly ended that or put that on hold right now. This is all unfolding at this point, but a shooting has occurred, Alex.
Now, the two people who were shot are suspected to be members of Tren de Aragua, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Now, this is also concerning as attacks on ICE and CBP have increased over 1,000% in the last year. Because they're trying to remove people like members of drug cartels and people who are stealing your and my tax money to funnel it back to Somalia, to Muslim terrorist groups. Also, it's very strange why some people are protesting and rioting on behalf of people who don't belong here and are stealing from us. I heard this stat this week that roughly 10% at the low end of the federal budget over the last year was only for fraud. Like, that's how much of the federal budget was taken because of fraud, like we saw in Little Mogadishu. So imagine this, if you're watching and listening. How much money could you as a taxpayer save if these people were not scamming the government? I've also heard that if all of this fraud were to go away, people who make under like $250,000 a year would not even have to pay taxes. So if you're in that category, like myself, you should definitely be supporting the deportation of all of these shitbags, because the working class of America is taxed entirely too much and can't even afford to live at this point. So, definitely going to piss some people off with that one. Now, moving on. This was the story that I thought I was going to talk about the most this week, but it ended up not being the case. However, it does bear talking about. The United States conducted airstrikes on Venezuela early in the morning of January 3rd, 2026, and that resulted in President Nicolas Maduro being captured. The whole operation took just under 2.5 hours, and no U.S. casualties occurred at all. So it turns out the defense systems given by Russia and China were not all that great, despite what the left said prior to that. Oh, it's an impregnable fortress. It can't be defeated. The U.S. will lose the war against Venezuela. Seems like Donald Trump said, hold my Diet Coke and watch this. Leftists in America protested against this despite previously holding their No Kings rallies. And in stark contrast to that, Venezuelans across the world celebrated the capture of Maduro.
La gente llorando. Libertad pidió a este santo nombre que glorifica el vil egoísmo que trae a este santo nombre,
Agarraron a Maduro ya salió Donald Trump diciendo.
So, in my opinion, the capture of Maduro on top of the strike that took place on Iran's nuclear facility shows that, for the time being, the United States ain't fucking around. Chinese delegates were also in the country when Maduro was captured, which I imagine was a major surprise to them as the operation took place. China and Russia are really going to feel the pain on this one, as they were the two biggest partners with Venezuela leading up to Maduro's capture, buying their oil and supplying Venezuela with military equipment. China especially, because Venezuela was like the only place that they were getting oil, basically. So right after this, Colombian President Gustavo Petro told Trump to come and get him, but has since backed off of that and will be meeting with Trump very soon, as stated in this post on Truth Social, which reads, quote, "I look forward to having a meeting with Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, in the White House during the first week of February. I am sure it will work out very well for Colombia and the USA, but cocaine and other drugs must be stopped from coming into the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump," end quote. And we're going to have quite a few of those today, so get prepared. And finally, the memes coming from this are hilarious, like this one depicting Maduro being woken up by Delta Force. So, yeah, definitely like this. As I've stated before, Venezuela has been a major pain in our ass for too long, and this is finally overdue. Now, after Maduro was captured, U.S. forces seized 2 oil tankers, with one of them flying the Russian flag. On top of this, President Trump is pushing Congress to pass a bipartisan bill sanctioning any country that buys Russian oil. Trump posted to Truth Social that Venezuela will be giving 30 to 50 million barrels of oil to the United States, which really pissed China off. I tried to find a clip on this one. I couldn't. I know it exists. I just couldn't find it. Of China basically saying, "Oh, this is an act of aggression, and that's our oil," and da-da-da-da. It's like, come and take it. And this is yet another example of Trump sticking it to Russia, and at this point, it seems like Russia may have to cave to Trump. And speaking of Russia, the Trump administration is trying to acquire Greenland. Trump says that it is for national security reasons.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You look at, you don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
Have you asked your staff to draw plans for...
And of course, the left is up in arms over this, despite their diehard support for Ukraine fighting Russia. Just so you know, as President Trump stated, Russia has submarines all around Greenland, which isn't that far from the United States. So if you hate Russia, you really should support this. Just saying. Your hypocrisy is showing. Now, we also gotta go back into the not-so way-back machine, but do y'all remember the Seditious 6 video a couple months back of several politicians from D.C. telling active duty troops to defy illegal orders? Well, Senator Mark Kelly may be facing some accountability for his involvement in that little stunt. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth called for a censure of Mark Kelly, and rumors are claiming that he may be recalled to active duty and court-martialed for that video. And here is Mark Kelly responding to Pete Hegseth.
Let me make it perfectly clear. This letter, or anything that Pete Hegseth says or does to me, is in no way going to affect the way I do my job and represent my constituents in the United States Senate. Ain't happening. So, his option right now is he can continue with this kind of bull, or he can go take a hike. That's his options. And if I have an opportunity to, tell him that tomorrow, maybe I will.
So, just so we're clear, Senator Kelly allegedly violated Articles 133 and 134 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, or UCMJ for short. Article 133 pertains to, quote, conduct unbecoming of an officer, end quote, which basically means that officers in the military should conduct themselves to a higher standard even after they have left military service. Article 134, known as the General Article, quote, covers conduct prejudicial to good order and discipline or self-discrediting and requires a demonstrable connection between the conduct and harm to the military, end quote. So, seems to me like he kind of violated both of those. Finally, should Senator Kelly's rank be reduced, he will lose a significant portion, if not all, of his military retirement benefits, to which I'm not upset about whatsoever. So hopefully he gets the book thrown at him for that. And one quick one that I forgot to put in here, but I think is very, very important to mention. President Trump is trying to push Congress to pass a bill that would ban large investment firms from buying up single-family homes. Firms like Vanguard and BlackRock. That way it keeps the housing market fair for working-class people to buy a home. I think this is something that both parties can get behind, unless your TDS is just so out of control that you can't see how this would be beneficial to working-class people. So, hopefully that goes through. We'll see. And finally, protests have been ongoing in Iran since December after a sharp decline in the value of their money, with Iranian people taking to the streets and even burning down Revolutionary Guard posts across the country. There's even been some cases where local police have joined the protests, which is in stark contrast to how things have gone in the past. However, the Iranian military has been tasked with stopping these protests, with some reports stating that as little as 50 people have been killed, and others allege that up to 200 have been killed. It's kind of hard to know because the internet is currently off in that country, but Elon Musk is working, or if not, has already got Starlink up and going in Iran to allow people to have communication outside of the country, or with just people down the block from them. So because of all of this unrest, Ayatollah Khomeini is seeking possible refuge in Moscow, which is pretty much the only place he can go at this point. China won't take him because they don't tolerate Islam in that country. And obviously he couldn't go anywhere in Europe because nobody would take him. So, yeah, Moscow seems to be the only place he could go. President Trump says that we will protect protesters in his post on Truth Social, which reads, quote, if Iran shoots, if Iran shots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump, end quote. I'm sorry for laughing. Just that last part always gets me. And he also doubled down on this promise.
So Iran's in big trouble. It looks to me that the people are taking over certain cities that nobody thought were really possible just a few weeks ago. We're watching the situation very carefully. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground, but it means hitting them very, very hard where it hurts. So we don't want that to happen. There have been cases like this where President Obama totally backed down. But this is something pretty incredible that's happening in Iran. It's an amazing thing to watch. They've done a bad job. They've treated their people very badly, and now they're being paid back. So let's see what happens. We're watching it. We're watching it very closely.
So apparently Iranian people are renaming streets to include Trump's name during these protests. And women are tearing off their hijabs and burning them in the streets. So you'd think that feminists would be on on board with this, but sadly, this isn't being covered at all in the United States. The only reason I know about this is because of the PBD podcast, which is not surprising because Patrick Bet-David is Iranian. His family moved here when he was a young child, so I could see why he has a vested interest in this taking place. So finally, Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi seems to be making moves to regain power in Iran. His father was the last Shah or king of the country and was overthrown in 1979. Now, there were good and bad things about the Shah being in power. They had a secret police that was torturing people, which was not good, but there seemed to be a lot of peace there during that time. So, if I'm wrong on that, please correct me. However, it seems like organic regime change is coming to the country of Iran, and Iran could possibly be free and part of the free world again. Because it seems like people are done. It seems like people are done with this radical Islamic power that's running that country, and they're just done. So hopefully some good things happen there. We'll see. That is all I have for you this week. If I missed something important that I should have talked about, let me know, and I'll try to cover it next week. Share this with your normie friends or your liberal friends if you really just want to piss them off. Doesn't matter to me. The views are views. So take care, guys. Keep your head on a swivel, and I will catch you all next time. Take care.